For decades, Pakistan's security threats followed a predictable eastward path toward India. Now that vector has turned inward, aiming directly at the capital. LashkarETaiba, a UN-designated terror organization, has issued a direct ultimatum to the Pakistani government. If Islamabad formally recognizes the State of Israel, the group will systematically destroy the state. This is an organization with a demonstrated ability to conduct high-casualty operations across entire regions. Their threats carry the weight of a sophisticated transnational logistics network and thousands of trained militants. The weapon Islamabad once pointed outward is now targeting the very state that helped it grow. Direct diplomatic pressure from Washington to normalize relations with Israel has turned a long-standing internal tension into an immediate crisis. Close allies of Donald Trump, including U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, are now calling for Pakistan to join a new regional alignment or face the consequences. The goal is the expansion of the Abraham Accords. To the U.S., this is a strategic peace treaty. To Pakistan's militant factions, it is a betrayal of their core ideology. Normalizing ties with Israel is a non-starter for these groups, who have spent years poisoning the domestic population against any such move. This creates a collision between external diplomatic necessity and the internal stability of the Pakistani state. Pakistan's long-term strategy relied on nurturing proxy militant groups to conduct asymmetric warfare against its neighbors. Neighboring states have spent decades presenting intelligence dossiers to the UN, providing proof of training camps and state-sponsored networks operating with impunity. In 2011, U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton warned the Pakistani government that keeping snakes in your backyard in the hope they only bite your neighbors is a strategy that eventually backfires. The logic of blowback is simple. State-sponsored proxies eventually develop their own agendas, and those agendas often include attacking their creators. In 2007, that theory became a violent reality in the streets of Islamabad. Militants fortified themselves within the Lal Masjid, or Red Mosque, demanding the imposition of Sharia law and the immediate removal of the government. After the militants began executing military personnel, the government had no choice but to use lethal force inside its own capital. The military response, Operation Silence, saw armored units and heavy infantry clearing the mosque complex by force. This chart reflects the scale of the fighting: 11 soldiers and over 100 militants killed, with dozens more captured in the aftermath. The retaliation was immediate. A massive wave of suicide bombings swept through Pakistan, targeting military and civilian hubs alike. The Lal Masjid crisis proved that the state is fundamentally vulnerable to the very extremist infrastructure it allowed to take root. While the 2007 uprising was confined to a single mosque complex, LashkarETaiba is a transnational network with thousands of trained fighters and active logistics hubs across the country. If the military signs the Abraham Accords, these groups are poised to launch an immediate, coordinated insurgency. A confrontation with modern terror groups would involve a scale of weaponry and manpower that would test the limits of the Pakistani military's domestic control. Signing the treaty would force the state into a high-stakes war of suppression against its own former assets. Refusing U.S. demands carries a specific, heavy price. It invites economic isolation from a Trump administration, cutting off vital aid and potentially removing Pakistan from the global financial system. The alternative is recognizing Israel to maintain those international ties. That choice guarantees an internal war against groups like LashkarETaiba, dragging the country back into the cycle of bombings and urban combat seen after the Lal Masjid siege. Pakistan faces a dilemma where one path leads to a severed U.S. relationship and economic decay, while the other invites insurgent warfare from within. For years, foreign powers like India and the U.S. have tried to dismantle Pakistan's terror infrastructure through diplomacy and sanctions. But the final collapse of this system doesn't require an external invasion. The proxy groups themselves are now threatening to tear the country's security apparatus apart. A diplomatic treaty designed to bring peace to the Middle East may be the very thing that forces Pakistan to finally dismantle its own militant networks, or be dismantled by them.
If you value clarity over chaos, explore more on Clear Lens X.